All right, hey, John Cruz out here on the water again for another episode of Tackle Test. Got 3 more baits for you, gonna bring to you. The first one is the exotic. This is the Imakatsu Dead Screw. Now there's a lot of fun that we can have and we will probably have with that name, but as you can see, it's a Japanese bait. I've never ever seen one of these things in my life. It's a topwater bait. It's got huge blades on each end. So we're gonna mess around with that a little bit, and then we're gonna show you the SPRO Russ Lane. This is the deal. This is the FatPappa Square Bill 70. I've got the 55 as well. We're gonna look at both of those. It's a square bill style crankbait, big plastic, bulbous. We call these things light bulbs. Got a square bill on it. We're gonna check that out, see what's a little bit different about that. And then we've got the Reaction Innovations Shiver Glide 5.45, almost 5.5 inches long. It's a kind of a fluke style bait, but it's a lot thicker. And when I was talking to the guys over at Reaction, they were telling me some of the stuff that it's supposed to do. And I'm gonna be real curious to see that thing in the water, because there's times when you want something that sinks faster than a fluke, but you don't want a 48 or a weighted bait. You want something that still has kind of some action to it. So I'm going to see what this Shiver Glide's all about. Those are the 3 baits that we're going to get going. So I'm gonna whoop this dead screw out of the package. As you can see, Japanese writing on the back. I don't know how to say any of that other than Imakatsu. And then their slogan is "Love fish for life," which is cool. I like it. It's a great slogan. That must translate well. That's all I can say. So I'm going to take this big old beast out of the package. You can see this thing it's bigger than a spook. Or a spook size. It's got these 4-blade. Ooh, that's kind of loud. Got these 4. You can hear that. Got these 4-bladed props on the front and back. Got a little interesting looking lip right there at the front. The 2 treble hooks on the belly are a little smaller. Those look like number 4s. And then they've got a number 2 on the back, but it's got 2 split rings to try to set that last treble hook back further away from that blade that spins. So I'm gonna tie it on. I've got 30-pound Sunline braid, that X plasma on here. I really like that for topwater baits. I'm gonna just tie a Palomar knot. With these blades, I may have to tie a leader, a big, 20-pound, 25-pound mono or fluoro leader with this bait. But being that I think it's gonna be a steady retrieve. The only person that I talked to was actually at Lee's Global Tackle about it. He said that they throw it and just have a steady retrieve with this bait. And so we're gonna see exactly what that does. Set that in there. As you can see, it's a big old bait. I've got it. This is what I like throwing topwaters on. Again, 30-pound Sunline braid. Cashing 7-foot medium heavy rod, and then I got a 6-3-1 Daiwa Taitula reel. That's what I like for all my walk-in baits. But like I normally do, I'm just gonna sit on the side of the boat, toss it over there, and then I'm gonna just check this thing out. Those blades definitely spin. Kind of makes a little bit of noise. I'm gonna try to rip it. Again, that's not what it's designed for. It looks like you could rip it if you wanted to. Now, a lot of topwater baits, when you work them close to the boat, they kind of have one action. When you throw them out there, to where you normally fish them, they have another. So I'm gonna cast on out there a little bit. Uh-oh, I can tell the braid caught. Yeah, you're probably gonna wanna have to put a mono leader on this. I would say a heavier one, you know, like a 20 or 25 pound mono leader, so that doesn't happen. That thing kind of ticks along. The body doesn't do a whole lot. It doesn't have a lot of roll to it as you're reeling it. You can definitely rip it. There's a bluegill right on it right now. 2 of them. And again, as soon as I started ripping it, I got hung up by the braid. So this is definitely a deal you're going to have to put a leader on. But for these testing purposes, I'm just going to leave that braid on there. It takes a little bit to tie one of those leaders. Yeah, I like the ability for this bait to rip. I'm going to probably consider this thing when I'm going down to Florida, going places like that where you throw those big prop baits. But I mean, that's a honking big blade for a bait, and because of the pitch of the blades is so flat, that makes it to where you just barely move it and they spin. The flatter, the more pitch that they have, the harder you're going to have to pull in order to get that blade to spin. But these ones are set up so that you just barely turn it. But that's the dead screw from Imakatsu. Definitely a different bait. It's going to be one of those things I'm going to have to wait and see to see how I'm going to, when I'm going to use it, things like that. But I might have to research a little bit more, check out some more videos online. But the next one we're going to look at is the SPRO FatPappa SB 50. This is the 55. This is the 70. I'm going to throw them both. I've got them on 14 pounds. Probably what I throw this on is 14 pound Sunline fluorocarbon. This is the Crank FC. I got the cash-in square bill rod, 7 foot. It's a 7 foot medium heavy, but still very parabolic. And when you throw this bait in the water, you can immediately see that thing is wild. As wild as they get. Very buoyant. I mean, you just barely crawl that thing and it'll waddle. Man, it's really hard action. It is this bait, from what I could tell, mimics a wooden crankbait quite a bit. Now, the old Bagley's, Bossa Bees, those were the gold standard. Those were the first true square bills, and I feel like that, God, that thing is just wild. Got the bluegills chasing it. It's just wild, and I think Russ did an amazing job with this bait because it kicks really hard, it rolls, and it kicks really hard. It's got both what I call the swimming action and the hard roll. So this thing just goes really wild. It's going to be really good around isolated wood. I mean, it's going to be really good. I don't know exactly how deep this bait runs. I would say in the 3 foot range. But it's got that subtle hunt to it as well. Now that I'm throwing it and watching it, it's got that subtle hunt. Really good. I mean, it's hard to beat chartreuse with the black back on it as well. But I'm gonna just cut the 55 off and put the 70 on and just make sure that there's no crazy differences between the two. Again, I've designed the whole line of SPRO Little John crankbaits and Fat Johns, which is a square bill style crankbait. But this FatPappa square bill runs completely different. Completely different. Now this 70, this bigger one, I would probably throw this on like 18 or 20 pound sniper. I'd probably throw it on a little heavier because it's a much bigger, more bulbous bait. I'm gonna throw this, I'm not gonna be afraid to throw this thing right into some heavy cover. Yeah, that thing is just going crazy, man. When you see it in the water, it is just going Absolutely nuts. Just really, really hard back and forth. It's very heavy, cast really well. This is gonna be this is a big fish bait right here. It has that subtle hunt. It's not a real hard hunting action, but it's a subtle, it does not track straight back to you. It has that little slight hunt to it, even in that really hard kick. This thing's gonna deflect off a cover. Amazing, amazing. Very hard wobble. It is a really good complement to the Little John and the Fat John lineup, because this is it's so much different. If you haven't messed around with that FatPappa square bill, you should probably take a look. If you like shallow running crankbaits, you probably should keep that in mind. But the third one is very interesting. I got a color called Frozen in this Shiver Glide. Now, Reaction came out with a Shiver Glide, a little small one, that they made for drop shotting and for putting on one of those little Damiki heads, fishing it like an armor shad, you know, vertical straight under their boat. They came out with that, but then they came out with this Shiver Glide, which is a much bigger bait. I'm thinking to kind of go after that Zoom fluke style market, you know, Yamamoto, D-shad, that kind of market. But I'm gonna put it on the hook that I normally throw a Zoom fluke on, which is a 5/0 Imakatsu offset shank round bend worm hook. Now that's a mouthful, but that is the deal. I like to throw the fluke on 14-pound test, so that's what I'm gonna throw this on. I got a 7-foot heavy action Cashin rod here, the Elite Series, and a high speed 7-to-1 Daiwa Tatula 100. Those reels cast really well. So I'm just gonna go in here into the front of it. Yeah, go about 3/8 of an inch. I'm gonna wet it just a little bit. It's a habit. Wet it so it slides up onto the head a little bit easier. I don't know what hook they designed this thing for. I mean, this is a lot of plastic, but they've got they do have a little slit in the belly, which helps with the penetration of the hook. I'm just gonna kind of let that hook point rest right in that little crease that they've got. I wanna make sure that bait's straight. But I am really curious to see what this thing does in the water. Interesting. Very, very similar to a fluke in the way that it falls horizontally. It darts really well. I can see already just throwing it. It likes to dart. I don't see a lot of, it has the tail, this tail is forked, and it's got, you know, some substance back there. So I can see the tail wants to wander just a real subtle, just a little bit. But this thing is this is a heap of plastic, man. The body likes to kind of swing one way or the other when it sinks. I keep talking about how heavy this thing is. I gotta see exactly how far you can throw this thing. Yeah, that's a mile. It's actually a 3/4 of a nautical mile, I believe. Yeah, I can tell you, if you're, you know, on those lakes where you got those herring and you're catching them on the fluke, this could be a very viable option because of how far you can throw it. I would definitely say you can throw it further than a fluke. There's just more mass there. It darts really well. You know, it goes all over the place. I'd say the sink rate's comparable to a Zoom fluke, but it darts probably better than a fluke, I would say, if that's hard to believe. It likes to kind of spiral, wander on the way down. Very interesting, but I tell you, I want to try it on a little bit bigger hook. This is a 5/0 offset shank around. That's what I normally throw the fluke on, but there's not as much mass to that. So I've got a 5/0 EWG, which the EWG is a little bit better for the thicker baits like this. So I'm gonna just tie this EWG on real fast and see if it does anything different for the action, because I might throw this thing on the big 5/0 EWG, the super line, and I'll rig this baby right back up on there. Same deal, I'll go in about a 1/2 inch maybe. The hook pocket goes way back. I like that. It goes way back in the bait, so you can put a big old hook on it. And that seems to like it might fit it a little bit better. It'll probably sink it a little faster. Not too much faster, a little bit. Still has that little bit of tail shimmy in it. But definitely, I'm sure you can bomb this thing out there as well. Yeah, way on out there. Not bad for a weightless bait, huh? Get it on in here, but yeah, this is the Shiver Glide 5.45 from Reaction. Pretty cool to add into the fluke dimensions, but definitely need to take a look if you haven't into that SPRO square bill. Very cool. Never seen that dead screw before, so that's very interesting. And then there's your Shiver Glide from Reaction Innovations, and that has been another episode of the Tackle Test.